Hi friends, this is Chapter 2 of Lord of the Flies.
Can keep my hands on myself. Think I'll dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Yes, my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for Kingston.
Alright friends, how are we doing? I'm going to tell you something. Before we even get started with this whole thing, I just want to let you know that I had recorded this whole video for Chapter 2 and then realized that the video was playing and that there was no sound. So I got to do it all over again, and it's all good. It's okay because I think the last one was like 26 minutes, so we're going to try and speed it up just a little bit. So this is Chapter 2 of Lord of the Flies, and my friends, this is how it's going to work. You're still going to get to see my face. You thought you could get rid of me, and you can't. And you're going to see my PowerPoints show up here, and I'm going to take you through them. So what you should have in front of you are your own notes, because by this point you should have already read the whole chapter, so you have your own notes. You might even have the PowerPoints in front of you, maybe even the course pack, maybe even the novel, and you have all those resources in front of you, because if all you're doing is you're just sitting there listening to me without actually writing anything down and supplementing your own notes, you're a weird purse. So have the resources in front of you. And if you don't, and you don't want to be a weird person, is pause it and go and get that stuff now. And the noise that you're hearing is from a family upstairs, mostly my son, and it's driving me blood red mad because they know I'm recording down here, and it sounds like he's playing with marbles like it's 1982. So it's all good. We'll just deal with it, and we just keep going. Now it sounds like he is vacuuming while playing with marbles, so it's fine. So, Chapter 2 of Lord of the Flies. Let's see if we can make this under 26 minutes. So, follow along with me. The chapter, of course, begins with Ralph having an assembly with the rest of the boys down on the platform and explaining to them what himself and Jack and Simon what they experienced when they climbed the mountain in Chapter 1. And so, as you can see on the PowerPoint, what Ralph tells them is that, of course, there are no houses, no smoke, no footprints, no boats, no people. To let them know, of course, two really important things. Number one, that it is in fact an island that they are on, so they are not attached to mainland. And the second thing, of course, that it seems they are alone. The next thing that Ralph does here is he comes up with the idea, of course, of raising your hand if you want to speak. And so I call this the creation of order, because if they're going to survive and thrive on the island, they're going to need order. And this is kind of the first, other than already selecting a chief, this is kind of the next big thing that I think needs to be instituted here on the island to ensure that everybody's not kind of talking over everybody else, and that there is some semblance of order. That's gonna drive me crazy. So he comes up with the idea of everybody raising their hands if they want to speak. Now that's something that you and I, of course, take for granted, right? Is we do that all the time. And we've learned to do that from a very young age. And so either consciously or subconsciously, Ralph has done a really remarkable thing here, which is he's brought what works at home, right? It's a gesture of raising their hands that everybody, despite age, 6 years old or 12 years old, it's a gesture that everybody understands. And so he takes what works from home, a little bit of civilization, and bringing it to the island. So that's why I said consciously or subconsciously. I don't think he realizes the impact of instituting such an important rule, but it really is. Like I said, it's remarkable that he does that. It's smart. It's a smart move. So aside from kind of connecting the boys back to civilization, what it also does is it eliminates ageism. And ageism, of course, is being discriminatory towards somebody due to their age. And so when I say that it eliminates ageism, it means that everybody has an equal right to speak. Whether you're 6, whether you're 12, or somewhere in between, everybody has the right to say something, which of course we're going to see instituted in a moment, but everybody has equal say. And of course, the last part of it is that if you do want to speak, not only do you raise your hand, but you are passed the conch shell, and you will hold it while you are speaking. So we see this conch rule being instituted right away. There is a little boy, 6 years old. He's described as the boy with the mulberry-colored birthmark. He's never given a name, and he has something important to say, but as you can imagine, for a 6-year-old being kind of the center of attention in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds, he is intimidated. So the other boys are kind of urging him forward, and he's kind of leaning back against their hands, not really wanting to kind of be the center of attention. And so Piggy does a nice thing here, which is he allows the boy with the mulberry-colored birthmark to whisper into his ear, and then Piggy relays the information to everybody else. And what this little boy has to say is that he has seen a snake thing, a beastie. He has seen it, and he wants to know what the other kids are going to do about it. And in order to, I think, alleviate the stress or the fear off of the shoulders of the other boys, is Ralph repeats over and over again, I've never actually counted, but probably about 5 or 6 times, but there isn't a beast. And he repeats that over and over again, again for 2 reasons. One, as I just said, is to alleviate the fear of any kind of a beast or snake thing on the island. And so that people don't have to feel anxious or stressed out about it. And I think the other reason would be because, again, we can't forget that Ralph is only 12 years old. He himself is a child. And so by saying there isn't a beast, it's almost like Ralph is also trying to convince himself that there's no such thing. And you'll see why at the end of the chapter, or again, if you've already read to the end of the chapter, then you know why this idea of a beast is not brought up again for a few chapters. And so we'll discuss that when we get there. But as soon as Ralph very angrily says, but there isn't a beast, and he says it for the last time, it goes silent, and then Ralph changes the topic. And he changes the topic to what I've called the agreement. And it's very simple, which is what Ralph kind of says to everybody, is that there needs to be a balance between fun and responsibility, right? Doing the responsible things in order to stay alive long enough so that you can be rescued and go home. And so the reason why I call it the agreement is because of the quote that follows, which is that the passionate noise of agreement, from the assembly hit Ralph like a wave. And so the boys agree to this, that there has to be fun. There has to be a balance between fun and responsibility. And we've talked about this in class, and I've instituted kind of the same thing, which is to say that you need a balance in your own lives too. You can't just make school your whole life, because you'll burn yourself out. It can't be all about work, because you're going to miss out on your childhood. You need to have fun. You need to be able to relax. But of course, you can't just relax and have fun all the time, because then, of course, nothing gets done. So you have to be realistic about it too. So I think that there needs to be a balance in your life. And Ralph says the same thing to the boys, that there's going to be time for play, but there's going to be time for work as well, which they start almost immediately when the idea of building a fire is something that everybody gets really excited about. So even though Ralph has just instituted the conch rule and making sure that only one person is speaking at a time, immediately that is disrupted by Jack saying, let's make a fire, and they all rush off and go up the mountain. And the only 2 characters left behind are Ralph and Piggy. And Piggy says, they're acting like a crowd of kids, which of course is so ironic because they are. And Ralph kind of follows soon afterwards, following after the rest of the boys. Piggy's disgusted at Ralph because he's wondering why Ralph doesn't, of course, use the fact that he's chief to call them all back. But Ralph, he has to pick his battles. They're excited about building the fire. Let them be excited about work. And so he just follows he follows right after them. So yeah, they're gonna head up the mountain to build this fire, and everybody helps except for Piggy, and they build this massive pile of twigs and sticks and dead leaves and dead wood and things like that, and they build a massive pile until they realize that there is no way. There's no way to light it, and this is one of the things that I think gets Piggy really upset when he starts his tirade, getting towards the end of the chapter, which is that. Even though Ralph has instituted that conch rule about one person speaking at a time, everybody just rushed up the mountain without allowing Ralph to kind of finish what it is that he wanted to say about the fire, and maybe come up with some sort of a plan. So this is the result of that, or the consequence of that, which is that they all end up at the top of the mountain with this massive pile, and none of them know how to light it. And so Jack and Ralph are kind of staring at each other like, okay, are you going to light it? Right? Because neither of them know how. That's when Jack comes up with a really good idea, actually, to use Piggy's glasses to light the fire. And if you don't understand how exactly that would work, then and maybe some of you have done this at home when you were much younger, is if you take a magnifying glass on a really hot and sunny day, is you can allow the sunlight to shine through the magnifying glass, and you can, burn paper, burn ants. If you are so inclined, but it works. And so using the same technique is they use Piggy's glasses to light the fire. And one of the things that we spoke about in class actually is that the prescription has to be strong enough for that to work. So mine's only a minus I think 1.2 or something like that for my lenses. So because it works with Piggy's glasses, it means his prescription is pretty strong. And that will come into play a little bit later in the novel, but just understand that that Piggy's eyesight is not great, and that his glasses are, they're needed, right? They are a requirement for him. I'm not going to talk too much about that. Talk about that a little later. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about, because I've called it Injustice number 1, and you don't have to keep track of all those, just know that what Jack has done here is not a very nice thing, which is, and it shouldn't escape you about why this is inappropriate, but he just takes the glasses off of Piggy's face. All Jack had to do was ask, hey, can we borrow your glasses to start the fire? And instead, Jack just takes them off of Piggy's face, which, of course, Piggy doesn't like. And for those of you that are glasses wearers, you would feel the same way. Friends are always wanting to try on my glasses for whatever reason, and they always say, can I try them on? They never just take them off of my face. That's so weird. And so the fact that Jack does this without asking Piggy's permission, Piggy doesn't like that. And of course, if you're keeping track of the things that have happened to Piggy in the novel so far, we have verbal bullying, with Jack calling Piggy fatty, and now we've got just kind of the blatant, disrespect for Piggy's belongings and just taking the glasses off of his face. But it just so happens that, of course, it works. And they build this really, really massive fire, but it dies down very quickly as well, which is really, really important, because it dies down so quickly, which actually starts Piggy's tirade. And he starts chastising the boys for not allowing Ralph to finish what he wanted to tell them down on the platform, and also for this loss of order, for them already kind of not even allowing Piggy to speak. He has the conch, he has a right to speak, yet Jack tries to kind of change the rules a little bit, and he says, the conch rule, it only applies for down on the platform. It doesn't apply up here, to which, of course, Ralph has to step in and correct Jack and say that conch rule accounts all over the island. In any case, Jack seems to be the only one kind of breaking or changing the rules at this point, which is super ironic, because what he says next is, we've got to have rules and we've got to stick to them, people. When he's the only one breaking the rules. So Piggy chastises them for making a fire also that doesn't really serve much of a purpose. And then, again, if you were confused by kind of how this happens, is while Piggy is chastising them the fire actually kickstarts again. So again, it was really massive. It dies down very, very quickly, and then it kind of kickstarts again, which I've always kind of read as it kind of happens because maybe the high winds on top of the mountain. It's tough to say, but the fire, of course, it builds up again, and it starts actually growing out of control. And that really takes us towards the end of the chapter because the fire grows out of control. Piggy actually starts mocking them now to say, like, look at what you've done. And the boys don't even really realize the severity of what they've done. The fire grows out of control and they're shouting and laughing and they think it's kind of funny. But thankfully, by the time chapter 3 begins, we can just assume the fire has died out on its own. But it does spread and it does burn up a little bit of the island. And so again, just to add things to the lists that we've already begun, at the beginning in chapter 1, I told you that, this untouched island, which is really, really beautiful, vibrant colors and animals and things like that. As soon as you introduce humanity to it, they have created a scar because of the plane. They've created a deep hole in the canopy of the forest because of the boulder. And now somebody has flushed the toilet and I can hear it. And the third thing, of course, is the fire here. So I think there's a commentary here about, humanity and our impact on the environment, negative impact on the environment. And so they've only been there for a little bit of time, mere days, and they've already managed to cause some chaos through their actions. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is with this fire that grows out of control, there's no way for them to put it out. They just have to let it burn out. Is that the boy with the mulberry-colored birthmark who brought up the idea of the snake thing and the beast has died in the fire. Obviously, they never find his remains, but it's safe for us to assume that he has died in the fire. Piggy's saying that where the little kids were playing, where the boy with the mulberry-colored birthmark was kind of down now, where the fire has started to spread, and we never hear from this boy again. We never see him again, so it's very safe to assume that he's died in the fire. And so that's why we don't talk about the beast again for a few chapters, because the boy that initially brought it up is no longer around. So my last point here is just, the boys have to be very careful that if they're not kind of keeping track of the boys, especially the younger kids, and they're not doing things the right way and kind of thinking before they act, things like this are going to happen. And they have to be very, very careful if they want to not only survive but thrive as a civilization. They have to start doing things the right way. And you can see the consequences of their behavior already. We've got the accidental death of a young boy, which is so sad. But that's the consequences of their behavior. So that's chapter 2, and hopefully I did it in under 26 minutes. So again, if you have any questions, you let me know. If I've glossed over something that you wished I spent a little bit more time on, then please let me know. But otherwise, that's chapter 2. Hopefully it was helpful.
Can keep my hands on myself.